So for more on this breaking news development, we welcome Gidi, former peace negotiator under Prime Minister Ehud Barak and author of Insight, Peacemaking in the Oslo Process, 30 Years and Counting, and the founder of Root Group, joining us now from New York. Thank you so much, Gidi, for your time. Breaking news. What a moment for the nation. The final fallen Israeli hostage, Ran Givili, is coming home. What a moment for his family, waiting 843 days since the Hamas terror rampage. Your thoughts right now?
Yes, this is, of course, an incredible moment, an incredible achievement, which I think the primary credit goes to President Trump and the coalition that he built in order to implement his 20-point plan in Gaza. And of course, the ability of adversaries of Israel, Qatar and Turkey, to compel Hamas to live up to their commitment regarding the return of the hostages, the live hostages, and then the dead ones, until we got Ran Givili today. All of this is really a very significant achievement. Obviously, Israel's insistence on this point has been crucially important as well. And the military operations that brought some of the hostages back. But at the end of the day, I think that we're seeing a very determined American administration to move to the second phase of the 20-point plan of Trump. The Palestinian technocratic government has been established. The peace board is there. The Rafah crossing is going to be opened now. And we're moving into a new phase in the relationship between Israel, Gaza, and Hamas. Also, obviously, the international community around Gaza. And all of that will have an effect, I believe, also on the relationship with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank.
Gidi, before we get to more on phase 2 that you are outlining there, right now, it's the first time since 2014 that there are no Israelis held captive in Gaza. Extraordinary indeed. Give us a sense of what this means for the psyche of the nation, the relief right now to process exactly that.
Well, of course, as long as we had one person kidnapped in Gaza as a consequence of October 7, of the massacre of October 7, and the tremendous fundamental surprise, strategic surprise that Israel experienced, which was also an incredible failure of the security establishment and the political leadership and the entire structure that was created around Gaza since 2013. These things did not begin in 2023. The foundations have been laid since 2013, years of accommodation to Hamas power building in Gaza, witnessing Hamas speaking and envisioning an assault on Israel, believing that the Qatari money could tame Hamas, that opening of the border could tame Hamas, without any progress on prisoner exchange, which was a main issue for them for many years. They held 4 Israelis in Gaza. They wanted to do a prisoner exchange. Israel, of course, didn't want to do it. So there were many, many reasons that led to this moment. But I think that right now, when all the hostages are back, the next phase is going to have to be some sort of a national inquiry to bring forward the truth about what happened before October 7th, so that we can, as a country, move forward, and hopefully end up with an arrangement that will ensure long-term peaceful coexistence for southern Israel along the along the border with Egypt and with Gaza for years to come. And hopefully, the Trump administration is very focused on that. They have tremendous talent on the working on this issue. I'm not talking just about Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. I'm talking about the team that they assembled. We're looking at a very determined, creative team that is doing things that nobody thought would be possible on the diplomatic side, also on the economic side. I just want to mention one point about phase 2. Phase 2 of the 20-point plan of Trump, which should be around 3 or 4 years, is actually divided into 2 sub-phases. In the first sub-phase, which is what we're doing right now, we have a technocratic government that is taking over Gaza. We need to see the decommissioning of weapons, the withdrawal of the military wing of Hamas from Gaza, the introduction of the international security force, further withdrawal of Israel within Gaza, to what is called the red line. All of these things are part of phase one. Then comes phase two. And in the phase two, the Palestinian Authority is supposed to take over Gaza and govern Gaza. And at that point, there should be also discussions of the political horizon of Gaza, which is equivalent to what we used to call in the past in the Oslo process, the permanent status. Now, the key point here to observe is that if the Palestinian Authority needs to take over Gaza within 2 years, it needs to build the capacities right now, which means that the more we move into phase two, the higher the pressure on Israel will be to actually allow the Palestinian Authority to build the capacities that are required in order to move into Gaza within the 2-year time. So I think that basically a new set of political and diplomatic challenges are emerging for Israel as the Americans are boldly pushing for implementing the 20-point plan of Trump.
When one looks specifically at the reaction and the threat that still exists out of Hamas, just a short while ago, spokesman Hazem Qassem saying the discovery of the body of the last Israeli hostage in Gaza confirms Hamas's commitment to all the requirements of the ceasefire agreement on the Gaza Strip. You've already alluded to it. Do you see the Rafah crossing opening? Realistically, what does that mean for Israelis? How safe can Israelis feel right now? As you say, Hamas still needs to be disarmed. The Strip needs to be demilitarized. And this is the sentiment out of the terror group as we speak.
Okay, so withdrawing Hamas from Gaza actually involves 4 elements. Let me start with the simple ones. The first element is to actually withdraw the economic component of Hamas, to take the power out of Hamas into the hands of the Palestinian technocratic government. And I hope that this is happening right now. This is obviously a very important element. The second piece is all the civic services need to be handed over to the technocratic government, and that's absolutely essential. So we're talking about the economic engine and the civil engine. The third is the military. And here, I think we have to insist on the withdrawal of the military wing of Hamas, their military leaders, the handover of the weapons. In Gaza, there can only be one entity that has access to weapons, to military power, to police power, and that is the technocratic government. Unity of force around the government. This is the principle that should govern Gaza, and I think the Americans are insisting on it. And the fourth element is the political, and that is the most complicated, because effectively, if I'm understanding the deal that Qatar and Turkey are pushing for, is that Hamas will be able to integrate itself into the Palestinian political system. And this is very, very dangerous, because Hamas' goal has been for a long time to take over the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, which holds the mantle of the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, meaning whoever controls the PLO has the legitimacy of representing the Palestinian people. This has been the long-term goal of Hamas. They thought that they could do it originally by controlling Gaza and then gradually taking over the West Bank, but now they actually have an alternative political bypass, and that is to go and to take over the PLO. The person that has been blocking them from doing that for many years has been Abu Mazen, as the chair of the PLO and the chair of the Palestinian Authority. What we're seeing right now is potentially that Hamas will be allowed to continue with its political ambitions of taking over the PLO and therefore also being responsible for the PA. This is not going to happen this year or next year, a few years down the road, but these guys have strategic patience. And this is where it brings me back to the Oslo Accords. In the Oslo Accords, which the government of Israel refuses to acknowledge, there is a provision that prevents Hamas from entering the PLO or the PA unless they accept the agreements with Israel. The second piece is that once you open the Rafah crossing and you introduce a Palestinian technocratic government, there is a legal void in Gaza. There is no legal system in Gaza, not an Egyptian, not Hamas, not Israeli. The question is, what will be the legal system that will govern Gaza? And here again, there is one option, which is to build from scratch a legal system, which is an incredibly complicated effort, or to bring in the existing agreements from the West Bank. And I think that part of what's going to happen in the next 2 years in Gaza is that the technocratic government and the international security force will end up relying on the legal framework that was established by the Oslo Accords in the West Bank, which will be imported into Gaza. And hopefully, they will rely also on the provision of the Oslo Accords that will prevent Hamas from participating in the political system, in the PLO or the PA, because otherwise Hamas may actually emerge out of the war as the leader of the Palestinian national movement. And that is only because the government of Israel will not introduce the Palestinian Authority into Gaza as the governing body and go along with the Oslo Accords with regard to Gaza. So because there is a vacuum, I see this maneuvering that is emerging, led by the Turks and the Qataris, who understand the opportunity and are pushing for it. So this is a moment of moving forward, but we have to keep a watchful eye on the political plans of Hamas once the weapons are handed over, if and when they're handed over.
The impact, or the influence rather, of Turkey and Qatar right now on this dynamic that you are describing right now has been voiced by many inside Israel since it was first floated. But very briefly, we don't have much time left. I want to ask you about Benjamin Netanyahu's comments in Parliament just a short while ago, also making mention of what you have been describing. The next stage, he says, is not reconstruction, but the demilitarization of Gaza. And quote unquote, we have interests in preempting it. That way, we will complete the goals of the war. Very briefly, Gidi, what do you understand that to mean exactly?
Well, I think that the demilitarization of Gaza and the decommissioning of the weapons and for the Hamas military leadership to get out of Gaza, this is the very, I would say, modest interpretation of the goals of the war, because the goal of the war was to eliminate Hamas as a governing body of Gaza. Now, what is happening right now is that Hamas apparently will remain a very significant social and political force within the Palestinian political system. And not only that, the current version of the 20-point plan of Trump, the way Israel is allowing it to be implemented, is actually opening the door for Hamas to potentially take over also the West Bank. And why is Israel doing that? Because Israel is refusing to acknowledge the Palestinian Authority as the legitimate, the government arm of the legitimate representation of the Palestinians also in Gaza. So because we're blocking off the Palestinian Authority, we're creating, blocking out, we're creating a space, a political vacuum into which Hamas may move in. So yes, and I really hope and pray that we will come to the moment when there is decommissioning of weapons, the military leaders of Hamas leave. By the way, just remember that Trump effectively created a safe haven for them in Qatar when he pledged that Israel will not strike at Qatar again, at Doha again. So basically they can move to Doha and they can live there safely. They can basically retire, if you wish, from military activities. But what is happening at the same time is that the government of Israel is, through its positions, is effectively opening the door for Hamas to transition into a political movement within the Palestinian national movement. And as I mentioned earlier, potentially down the road, taking over the PLO, which means that they will have the mandate to represent the Palestinian people. So in the longer arc of history, you could say, Hamas is not down and out. Hamas is still a player, and I don't think that Israel has done what we can in order to block its political horizon. We can and we should do more, but we're not doing it, unfortunately.
Gidi Grinstein, we always appreciate your insights and your suggestions as to how things may in fact unfold. Not optimistic, the lines that you are describing right now, but we wait to see how it all unfolds. Right now, though, the whole Israeli nation, so emotional. This moment, thoughts are with the family of Ran Gavili.
We have a true hero. I mean, look at his story. He left, he was injured, he didn't have to. He went out, he fought, he protected civilians, he died. As Prime Minister Netanyahu said, the first person in, the last person out. Incredible story, and it's absolutely thrilling that we are now in the situation that there are no Israelis in Gaza anymore. And that's really a very, very remarkable moment.
A remarkable moment for the whole nation. And again, thoughts with the family of Rangivili, his parents, Talik and Itzik. The whole nation has been holding out for this very moment. Gidi Grinstein, as always, appreciate you speaking to us live from New York. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.